Hi, beautiful. Good morning. It's me, Carolina, your alcohol-free empowerment expert and author of the book Euphoric Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. And I go live on Wednesday mornings to answer questions from my clients and students that go in my programs. And I have a really good one today that's been coming up for a lot of different people. But before I say that, if you have been here and you've been trying to change your relationship with alcohol by yourself, or maybe you've gotten a few weeks down, but you're still, dealing with the awkward social situations, or you're just not sure of your next steps, we got support for you. We've got so many incredible coaching programs here for you. So go check it out at euphoricaf.com/programs. Maybe you'll find the next right step for you, because doing it alone was making me basically bang my head against the wall forever and ever and ever. And it was only when I really started immersing myself in coaching, in mentorship, in groups, in programs that I really started changing my life. Now, my life has literally changed from night and day from 5 years ago to today. Like, I cannot believe I sometimes have to pinch myself because of everything that's happened in my world. And it all started because I started investing in myself. And I started to say that my happiness, my dreams, changing my life, it's worth it for me, right? It's more worth it for me than all of the other, frivolous expenses when it comes to just racking up bills from drinking. There's a lot of money, right? I decided that this was worth it for me. But I'm live today to answer this really great question. And it might be this way: are you holding yourself back because of this? So there is this really, really incredible common defense mechanism. And before I say that, oftentimes I think that sometimes when people get really introspective, and I got here, like, I totally recognize this in myself, that when you really start looking at your relationship with alcohol and you start to understand, like, why am I really doing this? Like, not why is my reflex doing this, not why is my habit, telling me to do this, not why is society telling me to do this. But when you start really asking questions from a deeper level, from like, why is my soul choosing to participate in this action? And sometimes people are coming up with the answer. I've seen it a lot this last few weeks, is that I'm purposely holding myself back because I'm scared of what would happen if I really try. Let me repeat that. I'm purposely holding myself back because I'm scared of what would happen if I really tried. Have you ever felt like that? Has that feeling ever come across to you? Now, let me tell you a really common scenario where that feeling is pretty prevalent. So maybe back in middle school or high school, maybe this is how you were, or maybe you knew some friends who were like this too. You maybe remember hearing this. If I really tried, I would get good grades. If I really tried, I would get into a good college. But I'm not really trying, therefore I'm not getting the best of grades, right? Did you ever tell yourself something like that? Like, man, I'm smart. If I really tried, I would totally get good grades, or I would totally, do really well in school. But I don't care to really try, so I'm not, right? Do you ever remember feeling like that? Or like, maybe there was a class that, like, I remember back in high school, like, a class like calculus was really hard for me, right? Calculus was actually really hard. But there were other classes that maybe I didn't do as well in, like maybe in college, where like, if I really tried, I would have aced that class. I just wasn't really that present. I just wasn't really having the time and priority to do it. And so if you remember that feeling, right, maybe even you've gotten it at work, if I really tried, I would have gotten that promotion. If I really tried, if I really tried to apply for that job, then maybe I would have gotten it, but I didn't try. I didn't apply. You know what I mean? Now, what is this? What is going on? This is a defense mechanism. This is a protection that our ego is putting in place in order to try to save us from rejection and failure and success, but we'll get to that in a moment. And so maybe you've come to recognize that if you really tried, if you really changed your relationship with alcohol, now nothing would be holding you back, right? So maybe you have all these dreams. Maybe you wish you had a better career. Maybe you wish you made more money. Maybe you wish you had a better relationship with your partner. Maybe you wish you had your own business. Maybe you wish you traveled more, right? You have all these dreams that are kind of like pie in the sky, But you're here in this reality and you're just like, well, you know, if I really tried, maybe those things would be possible, but I'm not going to really try because I don't want to actually see whether or not I can do it. So do you see how we use this as almost like a defense mechanism? And it's almost as if like we're scared. We're scared of our true potential. We're scared of what would really happen if we really allowed ourselves to be unstoppable, right? So it's like as if almost alcohol comes to be this like sabotage. And I'm not really that keen on the word sabotage. I think it's really weighty. I think it's really heavy. But for lack of a better word, right? Why is it that when things are going well, sometimes we purposely stop it? We purposely cut it off, right? It's as if we're so scared that the other shoe will drop that we purposely lower our moods. And, you know, choosing to go back to drinking or choosing to even just use alcohol in the first place in your life, it actually might be a defense mechanism because you're scared of what would happen if you didn't have that excuse anymore. Let me paint this as an example because this stuff is really advanced, right? This is like pretty esoteric, this concept. But let's think of this example, right? So I've always wanted to write a book, right? I did it. It's here. You can find it in bookstores. But for a long time, that was a dream that was unrealized. For a really long time. Because I'd been wanting to write a book since I was 6, consciously, I knew that. So that's actually a really long time to not write a book, but want to write a book, right? So I wrote this book, the book came out at 34, I wanted to write the book at 6, so that's like, what, 28 years of wanting to write a book, but not writing a book. And there was this part of me that used to write a lot when I was a kid and when I was an adolescent, but then I started drinking in college and I really stopped writing. So I stopped writing, right? And I never lose this dream to want to write a book. Like, it doesn't go away, right? I still want to be an author. I still want to have written a book. I remember there was this one Christmas, and I was with my sister-in-law. And my sister and I are not that necessarily very close. But for some reason, I was just spilling my guts to her that night. And obviously, I was drinking. So that's why. But I remember telling her, if I could just write one book in my life, if I just write one book, I will die happy. And the way I said it was with like so much desperation, so much like futility, as if like it would never happen for me, you know, like as if like it's just gonna be impossible to write a book. And I look at it, right? Like I didn't write back then. I didn't actually sit down at my computer and write, you know? There's a lot that comes into writing, right? You want to feel like you have some burst of creativity. You want to feel like you have the momentum, the motivation. But really, writing is just sitting down at a keyboard and typing stuff. Like, nothing was stopping me from writing back then. But I recognize that it was so much easier to open a bottle of wine on a Saturday night than write the next great American novel, right? It was so much easier to reach for alcohol than actually challenge myself to go after the thing I really wanted. Have you ever done that? Do you feel like that might be a clue as to why alcohol is also in your life? Now, there's this theory that we are actually terrified of our greatness. We are terrified of our shining a bright light. Maybe we were a little different when we were younger. You know, I was really different. I am a foreigner, so I grew up with Polish immigrants. I didn't learn English until I went to school. I went to Polish school as a kid. I like grew up eating different lunches, you know, like all these things are little details, but it made me grow up thinking I'm radically different than everyone else. I was also really shy and introverted, so add that to like another layer of this being a foreign kid, and now you're foreign and shy, and you have a weird name so people aren't pronouncing it correctly. You know, like I just grew up feeling really different. And so I didn't want to necessarily stand out. You know, I remember in school, in high school especially, like I was a smart kid. I loved to study. I mean, I didn't love to necessarily do homework, but I did love learning, right? I really love learning. And so when it came to certain subjects, like I knew all the answers. I remember sitting in certain classes knowing every single answer that a teacher was asking. But was I raising my hand? No. Maybe once, but not for every answer, right? Why? I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want the attention on me. I didn't want people to think, oh my God, she's a know-it-all, or whatever that was. So I purposely hid back. And when I started drinking, I recognized that alcohol is the perfect mechanism to hold back, right? It's funny because alcohol at first makes you like, whoa, hello, I'm here. You know, maybe you're louder, maybe you're more obnoxious. And that's what I was. I definitely was like that at parties and in social events. But the next day was always like, have you seen that one meme with like Homer Simpson and he's just like trying to hide in the hedge? That was me the next day. And I remember even in college, I would go to a party and I'd meet all these people and I'd like have so much fun. And then the next day I would see the same people like walking to campus and I would just like, please don't see me. I wanted to just hide. That's like was my MO. And so I used drinking as a way to literally withdraw from the world. The next day I couldn't be bothered. You know, there's no way I was going to work out. There's no way I was going to sit down and write. That's a joke. I could barely phone it in at work. And so it gave me this really solid excuse for not trying, for not really being the best version of myself. And it was okay because obviously I wasn't feeling like very well, right? I drank the night before. You see how this can play out? Now, what are we scared of? If we really were to step up, if we were to play big, if we were to step into the arena, we are terrified of failure and rejection. Terrified, right? So imagine if you remove alcohol out of your life and you have this big dream of launching a business. Now nothing's stopping you, so you're going to do it. But now, like, you're going to have to see what you're really capable of. Like, all this time you've been telling yourself you would be successful if it wasn't for alcohol. So now you remove alcohol, and now you actually have to prove it to yourself that you will be successful. And that's terrifying because you're scared you won't be. You see what I'm saying? And so you are so scared of failure. You're so scared of rejection. You're so scared of what are other people going to think? What if I go on the social medias and tell everyone I'm coaching health and wellness now? And what if everyone thinks I'm a joke? You know, what if people criticize me? What if people say I'm not qualified? What if people say, you don't have a PhD in this? How could you possibly be teaching it? I remember thinking that. What if people criticize me, you know? And when we get this fear of rejection, it goes to the core of who we are because belonging is one of our most important needs as a human. It literally, if we don't belong in our society, we die. You know, if babies aren't taking care of their mothers, they die. If we didn't belong in our hunter-gatherer tribes back in the day, we would die. And so this fear is actually deep. It's a deep, deep fear, and it's threatening your psychological safety. That's why it can feel so intense. You're not making it up. So we fear that what if we remove the one thing that's blocking us from this greatness, but what if we're actually not that great? And the thing is that when you start trying something new, you probably won't be great. Like, that's okay. That's the point. I wasn't a great public speaker when I first started. I wasn't a great writer when I first started. I wasn't really great at business when I first started. None of those things were some inherent gift I had from the very beginning. I practiced the hell out of them over time. And I got better and better and better and better and better and better. And if you improve just 1% every single day, in 100 days, you're 100% better. So there was never any expectation, there should never be an expectation that you're supposed to be amazing the very first time you try, right? And it's not really a failure unless you give up. So let's say you launch a business and you open a product or a course or a coaching or a service up and nobody buys it, right? Like, oh my gosh, it feels sucky. It doesn't feel good. But you pick yourself up and you try again, and you learn something different, and you learn something different about marketing or selling or really speaking to your ideal client, and you try again, and you try again, and you try again, and you try again, and eventually you start getting better and better at it. So there really is no failure, right? There is only giving up. Same thing with your relationship with alcohol. There is no failure. Like, you could not drink and then start drinking tomorrow. That's not a failure. You decide to start again, you decide to always keep trying, you will always eventually lead back to the road of success. Now, here's the other thing we're really scared of. We're not just scared of failure. We're not just scared of, like, what if I'm not as good as I think I would be, and I have to actually let myself down? We're scared of another thing, and this is pretty tricky. We're terrified of our success, too. Terrified. There's this really great quote by Marianne Williamson that goes, like, who are you not to be great? Like, we are not scared of being small or failure. We are scared of playing big. We are scared of being really, really great. And why would we be scared of our success? Well, that belonging that we so want, if you're really successful, if you're really changing your life and your friends and your family aren't, maybe they won't accept you anymore. That's what the brain tells you. Maybe they won't love you as much anymore. We're terrified of being separated, right, from the herd. We don't want to be separated because then we will stand out. Even though part of us wants to stand out because we want the accolades and the attention, we're terrified of it too. So we're actually scared of our success as well. We might not just be scared of losing belonging. We might actually be scared of what if I don't know how to replicate my success? What if I do it once and I don't know how to do it again? There's all these different things that come to it. And it comes down to also what you believe you deserve in your life. I think most of us have this level of okay, this is how much goodness I deserve in my life. It's not this much, right? I'm not living under a bridge in a shoebox. I have this much goodness in my life, things are going all right. But this much goodness? I don't know if I deserve that. I don't know if I'm worthy of that. I don't know if I could sustain that. Imagine if some of your biggest dreams started coming true this year. Imagine if you doubled or tripled or quadrupled the amount of money you make. Imagine if you finally went out after your business or your book or your yoga teacher training or your health and wellness coaching or something that really gives you a sense of passion and autonomy to do on your own. Imagine if you got to travel all over the world. Imagine if you started being friends with your heroes. Imagine if your partner and your relationship improves vastly and you fall madly in love and your kids love. Everything is just going amazing. Sounds like a lot of pressure, doesn't it? It sounds good, but there's this part of us that's wait a minute, bring it back down. So what do? We drink. It's really simple, actually, to understand why psychologically, if you really lay all this out, why the brain chooses to drink. Because it's terrified of what would really happen if you don't have this excuse holding you back. Now, this is food for thought. This is a lot of work to overcome, right? This is very psychological. This is really deeply tied to your self-worth. And if you have recognized anything I've said right now as something that you play out in your life, a pattern that you've seen before in your life, I highly, highly encourage you to get some coaching around it, because coaching can really, really change this pattern. I used to really play this pattern. I might still do it to myself in a micro way, but the way I was doing it in a macro way, I stopped doing that. I love to let my life get better. I love to deserve that I'm worthy of it. I love to believe that life and things get to get better and better and better. I love to actually play big, because I know at the end of my life, I won't sit there 90 years old feeling regret for what I didn't do. Right? We don't regret the things we did the most. We actually regret the things we didn't do the most. And so even if, you're still drinking and this has been really helpful for you to understand why, or if you're already alcohol free, but you're really scared of what's that next step for me? Or maybe I want to do this next step, but I don't know. I hope this really gave you some food for thought of understanding why your brain is playing those tricks on you. It's very evolutionary, but also give you kind of the kick in the pants to be I don't want to regret not going for this. You can handle the rejection. You can handle the failure. It's not a failure, right? It's just a data point. Even right, that's a word that we can use in the alcohol-free journey. If you drink again, it's a data point. If you do something and you try really hard and it doesn't go away the way you wished it would, it's just a data point. It's not a failure. Only failure is giving up. So if this has been helpful for you, and if this is something that, you really can recognize yourself in, I highly recommend coaching. And you can learn more about my coaching if you're interested in working with me at euphoricaf.com/coaching. This is a very common phenomenon I work with a lot of my clients with. And I myself, have really recognized this pattern too that I've had to overcome. Another really great resource to read, if you want to start there, is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's a really, really good book to understand this phenomenon, and he calls it in that book the upper limit problem. So I hope that was insightful. I hope you learned something new, and I'll be back next week to do another live Q&A. In the meantime, get involved. Get your, take a leap of faith. Take the next step. If it's looking at launching a business, or if it's looking at, finally taking a break from alcohol, or if it's looking like finally getting coaching, or going on a crazy retreat in a tropical destination, like just take the next step. You will never regret taking these leaps of faith, I promise you. See you later.